Welcome, everybody, to Sharing Soulful Stories. Today, I am with Dominique Oyston. Welcome, Dominique.
Thank you so much for having me on Soulful Stories, Jo. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Now, let me tell everybody a little bit more about you, Dominique. Dominique is a visionary at the leading edge of reclaiming the power of the female voice. She is an opera singer, healer, voice and performance expert, ancient wisdom specialist, and founder of the Goddess Voice Academy. Dominique's programs empower women to become authentically visible and fully unlock their gifts and service. This is the medicine voice for our times. Ooh, I love all of that, Dominique. So I'm so excited to have you here. So, as you know, we're here to share stories and just speak a bit more openly about spirituality in the hope, or I suppose one of my intentions is to share how different and how personal that actually definition of spirituality can be for people. And I would love for you, if we can open with the question, what does spirituality mean to you?
What does spirituality mean to me? I find that when I was little, my world felt like a spiritual world. Like I remember feeling like my life was a spiritual life. And that was in complete contrast to the fact that I was brought up with no religion. In fact, the sort of messaging that, oh, religion is awful, and, you know, that we're here to be intellectual, we're here to be brilliant, we're here to be clever. So my upbringing was quite, my parents were theatrical and my father was a theatre director. So I was surrounded by creativity, but I was also very left to my own devices. And so my time was spent with books, stories, and in the garden talking to nature. And I would literally spend hours and hours and hours finding exactly the right song for exactly the right plant to almost like speak to the fairies of that plant. And my whole life was geared around almost like trying to see, like we'd go for nature walks and I would try and see through into the leaves and in behind the bark and imagine the beings in there. Almost like I understood on some level when I was very young that everything was spiritually alive. Our entire world was spiritually alive. And it was not something I consciously recognized, but looking back, the feeling around that was the feeling of that I am part of this world of absolute magic and beauty. And I'm supposed to be clever and important within that. But, you know, that was my place where I felt I was real, because I often felt very strange and different from everybody else. And so my real place was in nature, but definitely the spiritual beings in nature. So yeah, what does spirituality mean to me now? I think with that core experience when we're little, we actually, what do we take through? I've taken through this idea that there is something in us, and I call it the soul, that lights up when it recognizes the spiritual realms, and that the soul longs for the spiritual realms. There's that part of us that longs for home and also sees home, what is spiritual, in the earth. So spirituality to me simply means that we are beings having a certain experience on the earth, and the earth itself is a spiritual entity and it's evolutionary. Like we're all going through this evolutionary process of becoming something, and lots of people have lots of ideas around what that is, and that it's a movement. There's this movement between heaven and earth, heaven and earth, heaven and earth. And along the way, it seems to me that we are in a place of consciousness, awakening consciousness, becoming self-determining, but in a co-creative way. So spirituality means that we are co-creators. And in that co-creation, we look for beauty. We look for the possibility of co-creating in a way that's that lifts us out of the dramas of like human life and all the human kind of pressures. There are ways through, and these are the challenges. And I feel like we're alchemists. We're meant to transmute. Like spirituality seems to be about transmuting that which is challenging and dark and difficult and throws us off track and makes us feel we are not magic. And we're meant to transmute that to bring ourselves back to that place of beauty and magic and restoration of, I guess, an integrity within self. So it's a very personal thing for me at the moment. But at the same time, being someone who loves ancient wisdom and looking at all, the different epochs, the Egyptians, the Indians, the Celts, the Greeks, the whole continent of America and all the great spirit teachings on that continent, and then South America and the mystical teachings on that continent. Everywhere, and even the Russian continent, and you see the shamanic teachings in that continent. So it's like the whole earth and human culture is evolving. Something is happening. And, we try and guess what it is, but I don't think we really totally know. But there are teachings that come to us to help us along the way. And I think if we understand that this is not it, but this is, we do what we can with this moment, then that's really it, isn't it? That's being spiritual. It's being part of the co-creative process, agreeing and surrendering to that co-creative process. We are co-creating with spirit. Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually so grateful you summed that up, because you covered a lot in there, and I was thinking to myself, right, where am I going to go with all of this? Because there was so much beauty in there. And I know the book, The Alchemist, it sort of almost sums that up, doesn't it? This search where we come back to finding the home where we began, that was here all along. But gorgeous, that idea of, co-creating with spirit. So let's co-create something of beauty. Beautiful. Thank you. And would you say that, and you touched on your youth, but would you say spirituality has always been part of your life?
Yes. Yeah. And I think I was taught that at a very young age. I think I was taught that particularly by my father, who we would go on nature rambles, and he had this capacity, very much a Peter Pan kind of capacity, to see the I guess the delight. It was a delight in the small things. And there's a William Blake poem, to see heaven in a wildflower and to hold eternity in the palm of your hand. My father had that capacity, and I think for little children, that's actually all they need to believe that, to form a sense of the spiritual reality. They just need wonder. And I was allowed to experience wonder from a very young age. And so, wonder is this thing that sustains the spiritual life, I think. So, it's been part of my life from very early on, even though it's like religion is bad.
Isn't that so interesting? Well, that's a big part of it for me, is this whole, what is spirituality outside of religion? I feel really called to share that it exists for all of us. It's possible for all of us, even if you've not chosen to go down a sort of a particular religious beliefs route. So, having shared that with us, thank you. Can you tell us a bit more about your story, your incredible, from youth, wonder, delightful introduction to what spirituality is, but how has it unfolded across the rest of your life?
Across space and time.
Yeah, highs and lows, but maybe, the key trigger events or whatever it is for you.
Yeah, look, my journey has been one of understanding the self through the voice. That's been my whole life. And everything really that I've learnt because I've had to struggle to articulate my feelings, my emotions, and my thoughts and ideas and my sense of difference, and try to find a place in the world through using my voice. And the fact that I ended up being a singer and had a career as a professional opera singer and music theatre, and spent 10 years with a corporate act and travelled the world. So, yeah, the voice, I think, has been my pathway to understand everything. Whether it's from, the ability to communicate in a relationship, the ability to talk to your children and actually, make sense of the parent-child relationship, the ability to sing and bring art to the world, the beauty of art, and the self-discipline required to acquire mastery of something. This is relevant across any field. And so, yeah, the voice has been my pathway. And I think the ability to tell stories, the ability to really direct one's pathway through the voice, to say, I am going to do this. I choose, to really create a definite pathway through using the voice. So that's been my journey. And it's taken all sorts of twists and turns. I have had a very, very enjoyable career. And so even though I've met many roadblocks where, we get told we're supposed to be stars as artists, we get set along those sorts of pathways. And when the star pathway doesn't open up, it's very confusing. And so it took me a long, long time to realize that the pathways that were opening up, things like doing kids shows or, traveling all over Melbourne, setting up shows in classrooms and things like that, that was the pathway that was meant to open up. And then another time, coming to a point where I really, felt like there were closed doors because of technical issues with my voice. Like my first teacher, essentially, she stuffed up my voice technically. And so what was frustrating about that and incredibly devastating, when people say, yeah, we really want you, and then you're not quite there yet. You hear that enough and enough and enough, and it's just frustrating. But what I learned to do is I learned to fix the voices. So if I hadn't have had that go wrong, I wouldn't have learnt to be really, really good at fixing voices. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, we get the things happen that need to happen for the skill sets to unfold, and sometimes they're absolute crap. Like they're really challenging on a human level. They're really unpleasant and we don't understand them. But now, having got to this stage where like creating and helping and supporting women who are challenged with their voice, I understand it. I've lived it. I've experienced it. I know how painful it can be. I know how frozen with terror we can be in the voice. I know how confusing it can be not to be able to articulate your message really strongly, or not to just open up your heart and flow with some sounds when you want to, or not to cry, or whatever it is. Yeah, it's almost like I've been pushed through these vocal experiences, some of them really high and really amazing. Like I was chosen to sing for Bob Hawke and Blanche Delpouget at their wedding. Out of all the singers in the world, they could have had anyone. They chose me because there was something that was spiritually there. And I guess this is the thing that I've started to become aware of since becoming an entrepreneur, is that it is this spiritual life in the voice that people are really hungry for at the moment. So hungry. Do you find that with your own voice?
I'm honestly, I'm hungry for your work. I love everything that I see that you put out there. It's exciting and filled with wonder and delight and freedom and liberation for, sharing your voice in a way that comes across authentically and true for you, but also, not blocked by all your stuff. And I feel I've still got a way to go there, but but I do. I think what you're doing is fabulous. I really love it.
It's the ancient wisdom is, and the archetypes of the divine feminine, those lost voices, like the healer's voice, the wise woman's voice, the intuitive's voice, the oracle's voice. You know, they're all the things that they're so juicy for us because we haven't been, as women in particular, we haven't had that permission for so long to dive in to the deep depths and say what is in there that is life and talent and brilliance and gifts and soul food for me to express. So yeah, we're at an amazing point in time where on the one hand we're full of all this, as you say, stuff and emotional wounding around our voice for having to be suppressed for so many decades and centuries, thousands of years really, since the female voice has been in positions of authority. So we've got this huge healing kind of thing to bring with us, but at the same time the doors have opened, and it's like we're allowed to start saying, oh, what does it feel like for me to use my wild woman voice? What does she feel like? I can let her go now. So yeah, it's an amazing time to be in.
I love all of that. I love that. I love that. But what I would love for the people listening is, can you share with us kind of the more practical side of, and I know this is so personal, so it's really just to share ideas, but what does it look like? If we're peeking through your windows, what are you doing on a daily basis that you feel keeps you connected to that spirit, that spirituality side of yourself?
Yeah, meditation. It's a must. We have to spend the time to go inwards. There are so many external pressures who tell us be this, do that. And the only way we really know what is right for us is to go inside and try and tune into that very quiet voice that is the soul voice, and keep opening up that soul space, that inner space. And honestly, meditation is that inner listening. The voice is dual. There's the external expression. There's all the things we can do outwards. We can pray, we can chant, we can sing, we can tone, we can invoke, we can call, we can discuss, we can inspire, we can motivate. All these external activities. We can Facebook Live, we can video, we can do this. But are we allowing ourselves in equal measure the time to go in and to listen to the feminine, to listen to the voice of the womb, to listen to the voice of the heart, to listen to the lungs, listen to the spleen, the kidneys, how our experience of ourself actually is, rather than jumping into the mind and going, let me work it out up here. So that for me is actually the biggest challenge, because I've been so programmed, like all of us, to be in action, like really programmed to be in action. And yeah, so I think the spiritual life has to come in stillness and in listening, and then responding with whatever action is you're guided to. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, actually, to me. I love it, because you can read a lot in spiritual circles about, know your truth, or what is true for you. And if we're just thinking through it, we can just convince ourselves one way or the other of anything, basically, and making a decision from there can get incredibly overwhelming. Even a decision like, what school should I send my children to? When we can get quiet and, you can slowly learn to touch it in a way that you can almost feel it physically in your body and get a response. So beautiful. I agree. I feel that finding that place where you can be still, there's real wisdom there. The body has the wisdom if we can learn to hear it.
Yeah, and really the body, I think, is this. One of the things I learned as an opera singer is that the life force of the voice comes completely from the body. You know, the voice is physical first. And so to actually sense into how do I allow my body, how am I in relationship with my body to then deliver the art form. It's like the starting point. It's the fundamental starting point. And am I breathing in? Do I feel my left lower rib cage when I inhale? Or has that become still because I'm holding a piece of grief there? You know, this is all contributing to how we move through the world and how we use our voice. And most of us are tight in the jaw, and so that comes into the voice. You know, we're actually really tight, and we can hear that. We can hear when the larynx is high or when the larynx is low and relaxed, which means that our whole breathing pattern has settled down. So there are all these physical indicators that, yeah, if we learn to tune inwards, we start to know them and start to be able to say, oh, that's where I'm at. Yeah, and that spiritual, I really think that that whole kind of time spent with self is crucial, because I feel like the spiritual realms are calling us, and there are so many ways to navigate consciousness. You know, like there are so many choices. It's like, how do we choose? The only way we can choose is not by listening to everyone else, but by listening to ourselves and our soul. And that is crucial in this day and age, with so much bombardment of voices, so many voices coming towards us, to learn to listen to our own voice. Like how can we do anything without it and not get in a scramble muddle?
Yeah, totally. I love it. I actually feel that you've almost answered my next question as part of that question. Okay. Because the next question was, for those that, whether they choose to go down that stillness and meditation as the first step, or explore somewhere else, wherever they're feeling guided, do you have any advice for people that are just opening the crack of the cupboard door to explore what might be in there?
Yes, I can answer that. I'll answer that in relation to the voice, because
Perfect.
Not many people answer it in relation to the voice. And the fact is that we have to know what we really want to say and learn to say that. It's not the easiest thing in the world to say what we really think and feel. We're great at conversation, we're great at chatting, we're great at exchanging information, or you know, just rolling along. But that's just one level of the voice. And I think to take the voice into a spiritual zone, we actually have to start to tune into what is the most important thing for me to say at this moment in time. What is the most important healing medicine for me to offer through my voice at this point in time? I really believe that we are all potential healers with our voice, and we are all potential creators with our voice. You know, we get told, don't we, in the spiritual texts, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the created beings, and everything that was created through this. So it's like we've got those clues. We've been told quite literally, if we can disconnect from all the sort of dogma stories, we've been told by spiritual wisdom that the voice is a place of healing and manifesting and creating. And so the starting point would be to start to think, if I was a medicine woman with my voice, if I was a healer with my voice, if I was a creator with my voice, if I was an inspirer and a motivator, how would I do that? What would I want to say? What would the message of my heart be? And to start to let those messages come through. Like to ask those questions and really start to say, oh, I could feel that passion starting to bubble up. And we know if we bring passion into the heart, we can transmute it into love. And you know, passion is one of the few it probably is the only emotion that can be transmuted into that higher nature. Love can be, you know, love can be all forms, can't it? So many forms. So yeah, start to ask, if the magic, if I were a medicine woman already, what would I be saying?
Amazing. Now I need to ask myself that before I say anything else. Oh, thank you so much, Dominique. And now can you please share, for anybody that would like to connect more with your work and what you do, how they can go about finding you?
All right, so I am online, and I do have a program called the Goddess Voice Academy. And the Goddess Voice Academy is my membership program, and it's a little like the magic realm, the magic, I call it the creative cauldron of the voice. So there's divine archetypes, there's ancient wisdom, there's spiritual teachings, there's practical vocal skills like, how do I relax my jaw? How do I not get nervous? What are the main things about, you know, why do we get nervous? Those sorts of practical issues. And there's calls and discussions, and yeah, it's a place where we can start to explore the dimensions of our voice and start to self-realize through the voice. So that's that's my place, the Goddess Voice Academy.
Perfect. Thank you. I really want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of that with us. That was really some really amazing and fabulous things in there for people to just, you know, stir in their cauldron. It's, you know, see what comes of it, see what magic might arrive.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Great. Oh, it's a pleasure being here. And thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Love that you're doing this.
You're so welcome. All right then. Bye for now.